Well, hello, Urban Faith. I'm so glad to be with you all again. Today, we have with us accomplished pastor, thinker, now author, Reverend Dr. William Lamar IV. He is the pastor of the Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, D.C. So good to be with you, Pastor Lamar. Thank you so much for the time.
Alan, it's a joy to be with you. You giving me a degree I've not earned. I'm not a doctor. I'm trying to be one day, but thank you, thank you. I
Absolutely.
play one on TV, I guess.
I hear that. I hear that. Well, listen, Pastor Lamar, you have this book coming out on ancestors, something that I think is so relevant right now. We know that there's an attack on Black history happening in this country, and we're trying to do more and more to address the importance of recognizing our history, recognizing those who have come before us. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to write a book about ancestors for a time like this?
Alan, there's so many ways I could get into it. Let me begin with what was sitting deep in my soul and spirit as I was wrestling with these ideas, and as these ideas were really forcing their way up through me.
Mm.
In my grandmother's house at 223 Madison Street, well, I shouldn't say the city, but in a small town, smallish town in Georgia, there was a portrait that hung by the front door of her Aunt Viney, a black and white portrait in an oval frame.
Mm.
Now, many black folks have seen kind of sepia tone portraits like that. And as a child, I was always intrigued. Why is she there? Because it's like she said, the portrait said good morning to me every morning and good night every evening. And my grandmother began to tell me the story of Aunt Viney and how when her parents died when she was so young, she had no memory of them, that
Mm.
Aunt Viney took her in, raised her and her sister and literally saved her life.
Mm.
That portrait hung in the place of honor in my grandmother's home. And now it hangs in a place of honor in my home.
Mm.
And what I realize now is hanging that portrait was not just about remembering Aunt Viney, but my grandmother was seeking for a certain energy and spirit to be in her home.
Mm.
That same spirit of hospitality, that same spirit of sacrifice. And when she told me that story, she was trying to help me to become not only what Aunt Viney was, but the kind of person that she had become. Black people and peoples around the world have always centered ancestral presences, ancestral images, ancestral belongings as a way to root us, as a way to anchor us, and as a way to be connected with energy beyond death. What I'm trying to say in this book is that we, especially now, cannot be hesitant or afraid to embrace the power of ancestors, especially Black people, because we have been taught that venerating and honoring our ancestors is pagan, that
Mm.
it is unchristian, that there is something wrong with it, when there absolutely are no people who do not venerate or honor their ancestors and do it in explicit ways. I live in Washington, D.C. Part of the book talks about there is no city as steeped in ancestral veneration as Washington, D.C.
Mm.
The name of the city, the monuments of the city, the streets and the statuary of the city. Why would I honor energies of conquest and hegemony and white supremacy and not honor and venerate the energies that have made us the beautiful, free, wonderful, struggling, committed people that we have always been? And
Mm.
so I'm just very clear, especially, and I'm talking too long, but I will say this, especially for those of faith, because you cannot extract ancestral veneration from reading of the text. There
Mm.
is no way to know God except ancestrally. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, God of our mothers, God of our fathers, and also the very fact that Jesus himself climbed a mountain, and had an ancestral visitation.
Mm,
If he needed to be visited by and needed to visit his ancestors, surely we do.
mm. I love that. And I love you teasing out there that that's something that happens for Jesus. Can you talk a little bit about how this comes up in scripture? Because I hear it so clearly, right? God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jesus' question about that, and he says he's the God of the living,
And not the
right?
dead.
And not the dead. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, what I would argue is that Jesus is saying that the best of those ancestral energy continues to live.
Mm,
So if if you read that as God of the living and not the dead as a clear break between those who are breathing and upright, as are we,
mhm,
and those who are asleep in the earth, as are our ancestors, I don't believe that that is the best reading because throughout his ministry, Jesus talked about honoring the best of the prophetic tradition,
mhm,
honoring the best of Moses' tradition. He says, "You have heard it said, but I say."
mm,
He says, and what that means is, I build on the best of tradition, but in this moment, I have come to show a different way of fulfilling the divine intention
mm.
in this time and space. So I do not think at all, because even Jesus's name, Yeshua, is Joshua's name.
Yeah.
His name is ancestral. When he is on the cross quoting Psalm 22, my God, he is singing the songs of his ancestors. In his mother's womb, Miriam, his mother, is singing the song of Hannah, a song of war, a
Mm,
song of flipping political realities, a song where it says, the rich are sent away empty and the hungry are filled with good things. Jesus is surrounded by ancestral music. His name is an ancestral name. The name is given to his mother by Gabriel, the one whom God dispatches to her.
mm,
So clearly, Jesus is not trying to divorce himself from tradition. And when he climbs that mount and has a conversation with Moses, and who represents the law, and
mm,
Elijah, who represents the prophets, there is no way. And my read of that is that didn't happen one time. There is one occurrence of that, but the scriptures do not detail chronologically all of his ministry. I think this shows us a practice, just like every one of the times that Jesus healed someone is not recorded. John says, if I were to record everything that he said, that the world couldn't hold the books if
mm,
I were to record all of his deeds. So I'm clear that that for Jesus was a practice to
mm,
be visited, to hear, to know what happened before. And a lot of what pushed me into this, Alan, is I was trying to make sense of the intractability of American cruelty
mm,
and racism and empire, how we could fight for so long for a modicum of civil rights, and how right now through gerrymandering, right now through the police presence in Chicago and
mhm,
the militarization of Washington, D.C., right now in the rhetoric and the actions of the government to destroy healthcare, to keep us from thriving, assaulting our immigrant brothers and sisters. Why can't we do better? And part of it, I believe, is because they continue to invoke the spirit of those whom I call shadow ancestors.
mm,
Now, there are some who would say only those who would bequeath good to us are ancestors. But I trouble that to say that those who came before us with energies that dehumanize us, those energies have not died.
mm,
Why is it that Donald Trump wants to privilege a portrait of Andrew Jackson and
mhm,
the energy of him? Why is it that they continue to call upon Confederate energies to rename bases and ships and to replace statues? Because those things are about more than concrete and wood and metal. They are spiritual energies that communicate. And all of us feel this in our body. If you are a Black person, aware of spiritual energy, aware of history, when you walk into the capital of the United States, you can feel how it was built by us, but how things that were done in that place were designed to dehumanize and destroy us. We feel it in our bodies.
mm,
And for those who say, well, you're talking all this mumbo jumbo, why is it that in Richmond, Virginia, not too far from where I am here in DC, that when they were taking down Confederate statuary, and I write about this in the book, not one white demolition or construction company would take down one statue. They hired a black firm to take down those statues, and that brother today still has to arm himself and protect his family. The white people understood that if they were to take down those statues, it would be more than a job. They would be excommunicated from whiteness.
wow.
They would be divorced from economic thriving. They knew better. And it took one of us to risk taking down those statues. So what I'm saying is, by the same power that that brother in Virginia took statues down, we got to use that energy to put our statues back up, put our pictures back up. I talk in the book about ancestral design. We
Mm,
must design our spaces ancestrally. And we've always done this. Go into a black church and you'll see portraits of ancestors.
mm,
You'll see pews with names on them. You'll
mm,
see stained glass with names and images. We already do this. What I'm saying is, don't be afraid to call it what it is and to fall into it as did Christ, to
mm,
fall into it as did all of those who came before us. Muhammad Ali understood that to beat Frazier, he had to shadow box with Jack Johnson. That's the
mm.
only way that you win.
Wow. One of the things that strikes me about this moment that I want to ask you about is that we know that there's an assault right now on Black history, and that there's an effort, as you might put it, to disconnect us from our ancestors,
Mm.
right? Even in our schools, in our communities. Can you talk about why it's important for us to maintain and reinforce that connection? And I would even call what your the ancestor veneration you talk about is living history. How
Yes.
do we embrace our living history as Black people in a moment like this?
So I'm blessed to be the pastor of Ernest Green. And Ernie Green was one of the Little Rock Nine who
Mm,
integrated Central High School. So I remember one day I was talking with Brother Ernie and I asked him, I said, Brother Green, how did you all marshal the energy to do what you did in Little Rock,
mhm,
to integrate that school in the midst of all that violence? And he told me this. He said he had a teacher who taught them about revolts amongst the enslaved and maroon communities.
mm,
And he said that because he had learned those stories, and I would press the language, I would say, because the energy of those ancestors via the telling of the stories, that energy became part of his energy. When it was his time to stand, he said, if they could revolt, and if the Maroons could leave plantation economies, go deep into the woods and build a place of freedom and protect themselves, then I could stand in my day.
mm,
What they know is if these stories disappear, our fight will disappear.
mm,
If these stories disappear, very much GPS is able to quote unquote tell you where you are because it is sending signals to satellites, and those satellites are sending signals back. Our ancestors send us energy to tell us where we are and who we are.
mm,
And if we are disconnected from those stories, then we will not fight. We will not have the joy. We will not have the cultural clarity. We will not have the creativity. So today, D'Angelo died, the
mm,
great artist.
mhm,
And if you listen to D'Angelo's music, you know that D'Angelo has spent time with Marvin Gaye.
mm,
You know that D'Angelo has spent time with Teddy Pendergrass. You know that D'Angelo has spent time with Billie Holiday.
mm,
You hear him channeling through his extraordinary gift what we produced in the past. I'm arguing the work that you all are doing at Urban Ministries. You can't do that work without Katie Geneva Cannon,
mm,
and without James Howell Cone, and
mm,
without Howard Thurman, and without Prathia Hall, those who went before. So they know if they erase our history, then we will live as those who are starting from zero.
mm,
When really we are not starting from zero. We have gotten a baton passed to us from those who ran before. And they understand the power of history. Now, for those people, now notice at the same time they're trying to erase our history, they got a 1776 commission. They
mm,
are retelling their own story and they are scrubbing it of its evil, of its conquest, of its violence.
mm,
They are telling them, and all of their political impulse to tell the story, if you go back and read what they said, is because they don't want white children to feel guilt,
mhm,
to feel bad about who they are. They
mm,
are preparing the next generations to continue their story of domination.
mm,
If we are going to prepare our next generations for stories of community, for stories of love, for stories of shared human flourishing, then we cannot let them take our stories from us. And even if they keep doing what they're doing, they damn sure can't tell you what stories to tell your daughters.
mhm,
And they cannot tell me what to preach.
mm.
And they cannot dictate what we write,
Yeah.
what we sing. And so we keep going forward. We keep going forward. And they will not erase. To take our stories is to take us, and we cannot let it happen.
Wow. I've got to ask you this one last question for I try to ask this to everyone I have speak to Urban Faith. For young people who may be in this moment trying to figure out, okay, how can I move forward and be fruitful and still hold on to the Sankofa, look backward and move forward? What wisdom would you share? What advice would you give them about how to move forward and flourishing in a world that seems to want to erase them and their history?
What an extraordinary question. And let me tell you, the times have changed and the vehicles are different, but I think the methodology is the same. My parents took me to libraries as a child.
Mm,
I was surrounded by books. I remember the joy I had as a child watching PBS when it aired the Shaka Zulu miniseries
mm,
and when it aired Eyes on the Prize. And when I saw those images, I pulled every biography I could. I watched and read everything I could. And those ancestors became a part of me. Just like kids hear people say, you are what you eat.
mm,
When you eat that ancestral energy by reading and watching and asking questions, now those things are a part of me.
mm,
Those stories are a part of me. I will never forget when I first read Up from Slavery. And then a few months ago, I was actually in Tuskegee in Mr. Washington's house,
mm,
in his bathroom, in his office. And on the wall in Mr. Washington's office was a commendation given to him by the trustees of Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church that he hang in his own office.
mm,
That is the connection. When you read of the ancestors, when you open yourself to their stories, they will find you over and over again, and they will cajole you toward a larger humanity and toward the excellence and service and joy necessary for us to flourish in this moment when they are committed to our destruction. What I am saying is I don't want any black person saying, "Oh, I can't, this ain't of God." This is exactly of God. This
mm,
is exactly, when the scripture says, when you cross the river, put the stones there. So when the children come back and ask what mean these stones, that is connecting them to their ancestry. That is connecting them to the technology of sacred memory.
mm,
And what it will do is open up for us new avenues to hear the voice of the divine mitigated through the voices of our mothers and fathers.
Mm.
That is what we all are called to do, especially the young. Surround them in their rooms with pictures of the ancestors, with books of the ancestors. Tell them stories of the ancestors, and the ancestors will help to lift them to their true vocation. And they will be the warriors we need to fight with joy in days to come.
Pastor Lamar, thank you so much for the time, for your work. I can't wait to share this and to hear this. Thank you so much for your book, Ancestors, that hopefully will be a blessing to many people as they reconnect with their own ancestors for the journey to come.
Brother Allen, thank you very much for your interest in the work.
Absolutely.